filming a BBK intake plenum or throttle body intake, however you want to look at it. But it's complete bolt-on. It's adds, I think, what, like 15 horsepower or something like that. And then if you have a tune, you can upgrade it a little bit more. But literally just a bolt-on with plug and play. And want some fun with it. Let's get into it. So I don't know if you guys have a cold air intake or not, but it shouldn't be too different. I mean, definitely got to disconnect the coupler. Just take a flathead or a 7mm. But it's probably been on there for so long that we're probably gonna have to break the seal. Alright, so I'm gonna disconnect this little bracket over here. It has the throttle cable. So we'll disconnect that, get that separated. Alright, so it's a 10mm. Get those two nuts loose. Next, since we disconnected that bracket, we're gonna disconnect the spring. Let's see if we can get this guy out. I just gotta finesse it. That's off. Definitely don't want to lose that. Put that up there. Alright, let's see what's next. So since we got the cable off, the bracket, we're going to take off this little connector right here. It's a 5/16. Two little bolts. There's one there, and then there's one, if you can see it, right down there, which I'll take off as well. I got this off. Can't forget that gasket. Luckily, BBK was kind enough to give us a new one. Alright, so next, we're going to take this off, this little sensor. And it's 2 Phillips head, but they're probably really in there, so you gotta be careful. You don't want to strip them, but you definitely need to get them out. And that as well should have a gasket. This one actually does not. Alright, ready? Get the guy running now. Get the guy running now. Traded his bicycle for his own 2 legs. Next, we're gonna take off the evap canister, and then we just got this little connector here, and then part of this throttle cable, and then we'll just have to get these 3 bolts on this side and the 3 bolts on that side, and then that is gone. It's back to that 10mm. Oh shit, that's hot! There's 2 nuts. They're 10mm, so I'll just take them off real quick. Alright, so we got the purge canister off. There was a gasket on there, which BBK actually gave you a new one, so we just took that one off. Now we're going to loosen up these 3 bolts on this side and then that side. Alright, so now that I got the... It's actually 2 bolts in the back. I apologize for that. 2 in the back and then 3 in the front, so 5 total. That will come up. This, you kind of pull right off, but there you go. Alright, and like I said, the last thing that's in it is this little cable down here. So we're gonna disconnect this last hose over here. And these, you kind of just twist it and slide like that. And then this, you kind of just follow that little channel, and then you pull that right out. Boom. Look at the difference. Holy shit, man. Talk about
wow.
Huge.
That's crazy.
It's gonna free up a lot of airflow. Damn. Look at this little detail Ford did. A little horsey.
Put a little Mustang in there.
A little Mustang. As if you're ever gonna fucking see that.
Yeah, really.
Alright, so we're gonna put the new one in pretty soon. BBK sends you 2 plastic hose connectors. Depends on your year to see which one fits. Obviously, it don't add up. So it'd be this one. So we'll just thread that guy in down there. If you have Teflon type tape, you could probably put it on, but you don't necessarily need to. We bypassed this 5th screw, and BBK once again was nice enough to give us new screws. They're actually Allen key. We'll just hand thread them in real quick. Get them hand threaded in, and I'm gonna tighten them down with a 3/16 Allen key. Nice and snug. Definitely don't want to over tighten them because you're going into plastic, and we all know what happens if you over tighten with plastic. You're gonna strip it, and then you got a leak. Just right there, white knuckle tight. I'm sure there's a torque spec, but you don't really have to torque. All right, so I got the throttle cables in. It's hard to see, but I put the black one on that little tab that sticks out, and then I had to wire this cable up and around and into here. It's hard to see, but once you see it up in person, it makes sense. Next, we just gotta put the spring in. Put that through there. And we'll get this one through there. Boom, we're spring loaded. Then we just have to put those screws in right there. And we'll do that. We're gonna thread those back in with our hand real quick. Just be careful because it's under spring loaded. If you can see. We'll tighten those down. Alright, now we're gonna put the gasket on. We'll thread this through. Just gonna tighten up the bolts that connect the EGR valve to the air intake plenum. We actually had to go to AutoZone because the stock bolts were the wrong thread pitch. So we had to get some makeshift ones, improvise. It was M8 by 125 by 35 millimeter. Now we're just gonna attach the hoses. Don't forget about this hose in the back. It'll slide over that little nipple. Alright, we'll put this one on. We'll put this one on. Alright. And then we just got a couple things left to do. We gotta get this new gasket. That's right on here. Like that. Then that will go on there. Alright, so we got that on. We're gonna clip it in. I'm gonna put this guy on there. Just gotta line it up with the right marks. Alright, so I got those two Phillips heads in. And we're just gonna clip that on. And lastly, we just gotta hook up this, which we'll hook up after we get the cold air intake on the plenum, because it will restrict it, so it'll make it easier. Alright, so you could actually use a 3-inch coupler. Definitely use some WD-40 to lube it up so it slides on a little easier. You're gonna have to stretch it, but it was not as bad as I thought. Now we just gotta get some clamps on there. Alright, got the new clamp on, just gotta tighten it down. Once again, it could either be a 7mm socket or you could use a flathead. And that ain't going anywhere. Alright, now for the other side. Get this guy on. Once again, you're probably gonna have to WD-40 it. You gotta stretch it. Got it on the intake side. Once again, just tighten it up. So I got that on. Last but not least, this little connector here. And yes, you could lube it up if you need to. But that's it. Everything's good. Pretty soon will be the startup. First startup. Alright guys, so that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Please subscribe, like, refer us to your friends. But we finished up with the 78mm BBK air intake plenum. It's a lot of fun. So
A very eventful install.
yeah, we had a couple hiccups along the way, but we managed to get through it. All the extra parts and whatever will be in the bio. So stay tuned.